Picture the greatest literary achievement in human history. You're imagining Homer, Shakespeare, maybe the Bible, poetry, drama, the profound longings of the human soul pressed into language. Now imagine that none of that came first. The oldest writing ever found, the very first thing humans scratched onto a permanent surface, reads roughly as follows: 29,086 measures of barley, 37 months, Kushim. That's it. That's the debut of human writing. Not, I love you. Not, in the beginning. Not even a decent story. Just a receipt. Signed by a guy named Kushim, who may be the single most historically important accountant who ever lived, and also, almost certainly, the most boring person at any dinner party in 3200 BC, Mesopotamia. Humanity's greatest invention, writing, was created to track debt. And from that one ledger entry, everything you know about money, morality, and modern life flows in a straight line. You just never knew where the river started. So let's go back, way back, to the mud. Around 3200 BC, in the ancient city of Uruk, in what is now southern Iraq, something extraordinary happened. Cities were getting big, temples were storing grain, farmers were producing surpluses. And humans, being humans, immediately faced a problem that has never once gone away in 5,000 years. Who owes what to whom? The Sumerians needed a record-keeping system. Fortunately, they lived next to a river, which meant they had two things in unlimited supply: reeds and mud. A Sumerian scribe, basically the world's first office worker, would take a reed, press it into a wet clay tablet, make little wedge-shaped marks, and voila, cuneiform, the world's first writing system. Now here's the thing they don't teach you in school. The Sumerians were not writing poetry. They were not writing history. They were not writing anything remotely interesting. They were writing grain receipts, livestock inventories, interest calculations. The vast majority of cuneiform tablets ever found are, functionally, spreadsheets. Humanity had the capacity for language, art, music, and storytelling for at least 100,000 years before this. But the thing that finally pushed us to invent permanent writing was paperwork. If that doesn't say something profound about our species, nothing does. Before we go further, we need to destroy a story you were almost certainly taught. Every economics textbook for the last 250 years has told the same origin story of money. First, humans bartered. You give me 3 chickens, I give you a pot. Then barter became inconvenient, so we invented money as a medium of exchange. Simple, clean, obviously true. There is one problem with this story. There is not a single piece of archaeological evidence that any society ever operated this way. Anthropologists have looked hard. They have studied hundreds of ancient cultures. Not one has been found where strangers routinely traded chickens for pots. That's not how early economies worked. Early economies ran on credit, obligation, and social debt, a system of mutual favors tracked mentally in small communities where everyone knew everyone. The economist's story of barter then money was invented in 1776 by Adam Smith. He never produced evidence for it. He just assumed it must have happened that way because it seemed logical. Economists then repeated it for 2.5 centuries because, well, it was in the textbook. Here's what actually happened. Before there was money, there was debt. Debt is older than coins. Debt is older than markets. Debt might be older than civilization itself, and civilization might, in fact, be what debt produced. Here's the actual sequence of events, as best as historians and archaeologists can reconstruct. Humans lived in communities. Communities created obligations you helped your neighbor harvest. Your neighbor owed you. Debts were remembered, not written. This worked fine when everyone knew everyone. Then cities happened. In cities, you are surrounded by strangers. You cannot keep track of obligations in your head. You need a system. So the Sumerian temples, which were simultaneously religious centers, storehouses, and governments, began issuing credit. A farmer could borrow seed grain in spring and repay after the harvest. Workers were paid in rations tracked on clay tablets. Debts accumulated. Debts were recorded. And then, because debts needed a common unit to be measured in, something like money emerged not as a medium of exchange, but as a unit of account. A way to say, your debt to me is worth this much. Money was not invented to replace barter. Money was invented to measure debt. Think about that the next time you look at a banknote. By around 1750 BC, things had gotten complicated enough that a Babylonian king named Hammurabi decided someone needed to write down the rules. The result was the Code of Hammurabi, one of the oldest legal documents in human history, now sitting in the Louvre in Paris, where millions of tourists photograph it every year without realizing they are looking at, among other things, the world's first consumer financial protection law. Because Hammurabi, absolute monarch of Babylon, looked at the lending practices of his era and said, "This is getting out of hand." His code declared that the maximum interest rate on a grain loan was 33% per year. Silver loans were capped at 20%. Lenders who charged more faced penalties. Debt contracts that were fraudulent could be voided. Slaves taken as payment for debt had rights. In 1750 BC, Babylon had interest rate caps and debt relief protections. In 2024 AD, some American credit cards charge 29.99%, and it's considered totally normal. Make of that what you will. But the most radical financial policy in ancient Mesopotamia wasn't the interest rate caps. It was something far more dramatic. Here is something that has been almost completely erased from how we think about history. For over 2,000 years, across ancient Mesopotamia, it was standard practice for a new king upon taking the throne to simply cancel all debts. Not negotiate them, not restructure them, cancel them, all of them, immediately. The Sumerian word for this was Ama-gi, which translates roughly as return to the mother, meaning a return to the original state of things. It is considered the oldest known written word for freedom. The earliest known debt cancellation was issued by a ruler of Lagash around 2400 BC. Hammurabi did it multiple times. Rulers across the ancient Near East did it as a matter of political routine. Why? Because ancient kings understood something that has since been forgotten. When debts compound faster than ordinary people can repay them, society destabilizes. Farmers lose their land. Free citizens become debt slaves. Military manpower collapses. Kingdoms fall. The debt jubilee wasn't charity. It was maintenance. It was how you reset the system before it broke. Biblical scholars have traced this tradition directly into the Hebrew scriptures. The Jubilee year in Leviticus 25 is the Mesopotamian debt cancellation, translated into religious law. Scholars believe the word used in Leviticus for the Jubilee drawer is directly related to the Akkadian word Andurarim, used for Babylonian clean slate proclamations. The tradition of debt forgiveness didn't begin with Jesus. But when Jesus stood up in the synagogue and announced he had come to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, scholars argue he was specifically invoking the Jubilee year. The radical economic content of early Christianity has been almost entirely buried. And here is where the story gets dark. The word guilt in German is Schuld. The word for debt in German is also Schuld. This is not a coincidence. Across multiple ancient languages, the words for debt, guilt, and sin overlap or are identical. Anthropologist David Graeber, in his landmark book Debt, The First 5,000 Years, argues that this is because moral language, our entire framework of owing, obligation, transgression, and redemption was built on the foundation of financial debt. When ancient priests wrote that humans owed a debt to the gods that could never be fully repaid, they were using a metaphor that their audiences understood in their bones because everyone knew what it meant to owe more than you could pay. The language of spiritual redemption was borrowed directly from the language of debt relief. When you say you want to redeem yourself for something, you are using a word that originally meant buying back a slave or a foreclosed property. When you feel guilt for something, you are using a concept that was first articulated in the context of unpaid financial obligations. The moral architecture of Western civilization, the ideas of sin, guilt, debt, redemption, forgiveness, and salvation was built on top of the same clay tablet accounting system that Kushim the Sumerian accountant was using to track barley in 3200 BC. Here is what the ancient Mesopotamian kings understood that we have forgotten. Debt, left unchecked, always flows uphill. It concentrates. The productive class becomes the indebted class, becomes the landless class. Inequality compounds the same way interest does, relentlessly, mathematically, until something breaks. The debt jubilee was the circuit breaker, and when the Roman Empire absorbed the ancient world, they brought creditor-friendly law with them, and the jubilee tradition died. Historians like Livy and Plutarch, writing centuries later, identified the unchecked power of creditors as a central cause of Rome's collapse. Today, your student loan compounds, your mortgage compounds, your credit card balance compounds. The global financial system is built on the same logic that Hammurabi was trying to regulate in 1750 BC, except now there is no king who can declare a clean slate. and the suggestion that one should is considered dangerously radical. But the story started long before your credit score. It started with a reed pressed into wet mud beside a river in what is now Iraq. It started with one man, Kushim, who looked at a pile of barley and thought, I should write this down so no one forgets. He probably just wanted to make sure he got paid. He accidentally invented civilization, and the debt has been compounding ever since.